Have you ever really stopped to think about how the clothes we wear get their color? It's a story that actually stretches from these ancient, incredibly intricate handcrafts all the way to massive industrial machines. So today, we're going to take a journey from the patient art of Indian tie-dye to the super high-speed world of modern textile coloring. Just take a look at this fabric. It's incredible, right? These vibrant, detailed patterns, well, they weren't made with a pen or a paintbrush. Not a single stroke. So, what's the secret? It turns out it's not about what gets colored, but what's protected from the color. And this whole technique is called resist dyeing. It's a beautifully simple idea when you break it down. Artisans block parts of the fabric with what's called a resist. It could be something like thread or wax or even a special kind of paste. Then, when the fabric gets dipped in dye, the color can only get to the parts left exposed. And that's how you create a pattern in what's essentially negative space. Pretty clever.
Now, one of the most masterful examples of this is the traditional Indian art of bandhani. So let's unravel this whole process.
Okay, so this process, it just shows an incredible amount of patience and skill, right? Stuff that's often passed down through generations. After they prep and mark the fabric, that's when the real artistry kicks in. Artisans meticulously pinch and tightly wrap thousands, literally thousands of tiny little sections with thread. And get this, for a design with multiple colors, it's not a one-and-done thing. Nope. They have to retie and re-dye the fabric for every single darker color, always going from light to dark. And then finally, after all that painstaking work, the knots are carefully unraveled and you get to see the intricate masterpiece that was hidden inside.
What's really cool is that this technique isn't the same everywhere. It has its own distinct regional personalities. So let's take a look at a tale of two states, Gujarat and Rajasthan.
These two images show the regional differences perfectly. On the left, you've got the Gujarati bandhani style, which is famous for its incredibly fine, really intricate dot patterns. And then on the right, you're seeing Rajasthani laheria. Now that name comes from the Hindi word laher, which means wave. And you can totally see why with those stunning, flowing lines.
So let's break these differences down a bit more. In Gujarat, the big focus is on those super fine dots, and they often form these really detailed motifs of animals or even human figures. Rajasthan, on the other hand, is famous not just for its dot work, but also for those iconic diagonal lines of laheria. And this distinction, it carries right through to the products themselves, which are so deeply tied to the local culture. From the Garchalu bridal sari in Gujarat to the vibrant turbans of Rajasthan.
And believe me, these textiles are way more than just clothing. They're like woven into the fabric of life itself. The Garchalu, for instance, is a traditional red bridal garment, and it's got this amazing grid of woven gold threads. Or the Pilia from Rajasthan, with its bright yellow and red colors, that's worn by new mothers. And historically, it was even dyed with turmeric, which people believed had anti-inflammatory properties. Every single one of these pieces tells a unique story.
So this brings us to a huge shift. We're about to jump from a world where textiles mark life's biggest moments to a world driven by consumer demand and the relentless pace of fashion. It really is a shift from craft to factory.
Just think back to that process we just saw. The thousands of tiny knots, the multiple dye baths. A single complex hand-tied garment can easily take weeks, sometimes even months to create. That level of artistry is incredible, but it just can't keep up with modern demand. Which leads us to the central question of the modern apparel industry, right? How do you possibly get from taking weeks for one unique piece to coloring the millions of garments that are produced across the globe every single day?
Well, the answer lies in what you could call the modern color machine. Let's dig into how commercial dyeing gets the job done on a scale that's just hard to imagine.
See, unlike the pattern-focused resist method, industrial dyeing is all about getting color done with speed and efficiency. And the key here is flexibility. You can add color at almost any stage of production. You can do it at the very beginning by dyeing loose fibers, or you can apply it to the yarn before it's woven. You can color an entire bolt of fabric after it's made, or you can even dye the fully constructed garment at the very end. Each stage has different trade-offs in cost, quality, and of course, how it looks. So here's a look at stock dyeing, coloring the raw fiber. This is the earliest possible moment to add color. This is exactly how you get those lovely heathered or melange fabrics where you can see all the little flecks of different colored fibers mixed together in the final yarn. All right, next up is yarn dyeing. Now, if you want a fabric with a pattern woven directly into it, we're talking stripes, plaids, checks, you absolutely have to color the yarn before you weave it. This process is more expensive for sure, but it's really the only way to get those sharp, clean lines and that richer, more color-fast quality you find in classic patterns.
And then there's this method, which is probably behind most of the clothes in your closet right now. Piece dyeing is the industry workhorse. You create the fabric first, then you dye the entire roll a solid color. It's easily the most common and cost-effective way to do things because manufacturers can react really quickly to color trends without having to commit to specific colored yarns way ahead of time.
And of course, the scale of production isn't the only thing that's changed. The technology of color itself has had a massive revolution. For pretty much all of human history, dyes came from natural sources. But in 1856, everything changed. That's when the first synthetic coal tar dye was invented. And it just blew the doors open to a world of consistent, affordable, and amazingly vibrant new colors.
You know, not all dyes are created equal. Modern chemistry has basically engineered specific dyes for specific fibers. For natural fibers like cotton, you might use these incredibly durable vat dyes. For the deep, rugged colors you see in workwear, sulfur dyes are a really common choice. And then you have dispersed dyes, which were invented specifically to bond with synthetic fibers like polyester, and acid dyes, which are the go-to for protein fibers like wool and silk.
So, here we are. On one side, you have the ancient, patient art of creating patterns by hand, one knot at a time, just packed with cultural meaning. And on the other, the industrial power to apply color and graphics instantly, driven by trends and efficiency. This journey of color, it really is a mirror for our changing world, isn't it? And that leaves us with one last question to think about. In a world that can give us pretty much any color, instantly, what's the value of waiting for it?